Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I help people using a spiritual perspective. So today's video will hopefully be one that helps you guys. If it doesn't, oops. But no, it might be a video that I would say triggers some people. Essentially, this is a video about twin flame synchronicities, the kind of the signs, the syncs that we end up seeing, but that might not necessarily point to some absolute truth. Okay, so what a lot of people will say to me is they'll say, hey, you big nose pasty loser, how come I see so many signs and synchronicities for someone that I believe to be my twin flame, and yet ultimately they turn out to not be? How come I'm seeing all those signs and synchronicities? They might also call me Kieran, but I think big nose pasty pasty guy has got like a nice ring to it. But it's a valid question. It's a valid experience that a lot of people pick up on. Right? There is some element of noticing signs and synchronicities that point towards certain connections, and yet so many people seem to be inevitably disappointed by those connections, right? And there's lots of ways of looking at this. And so this video is not really about proving or disproving anything. The burden of responsibility is not on me. I'm not making a claim here. What I am talking about is from my experience and based upon the hundreds of people that I've talked to, sometimes intimately, deeper conversations, sometimes just online, and what their experiences are about. So, for example, many times, many people will see all these synchronicities, all these signs, right? It could be angel numbers, it could be their name, it could be serendipitous encounters, right? And whatever, and it's all pointing towards one person in particular. Right? And what's funny about that is that the other people in their life who may show up, they don't have the same level of synchronicities and confirmations and stuff like that, right? And yet what will happen is that these people that we end up falling madly in love for, that we believe is our twin flame or something, that we've put in this box, this label, these and the synchronicities that come along with that, what ends up happening is that at the same time, it's over time, a lot of people notice, well, these people were unhealthy, right? They didn't work out. It didn't happen. And I'm here to tell you that there are plenty of people in your life that you will probably believe is your twin flame or your soulmate or whatever. And you will get plenty of confirmations, plenty of synchronicities. And what we need to understand is that a lot of it is going to come down to straight up confirmation bias. I mean, haven't you really noticed that you're a human being? You ever, this flesh suit thing that's happening here, you're a human, and humans are very good at recognizing patterns and making patterns and creating things. And there is an element of confirmation bias that you really can't ignore and just pretend doesn't exist. I mean, that's why the more you focus on something, the more you get. And because it has a bit of a spiritual label and flow to it, you're going to start confusing and kind of just saying, okay, well, everything is pointing towards this person, and the universe wants me to be with this person, and that's proof that they love me, and it's proof that I love them, and it's all this. But that's not what it is. That's not what confirmation bias is. It's not even what the signs and synchronicity may or may not be saying. It could be saying your focus is on this person, and so these are the signs. They are proving to you this connection is important. But importance does not mean healthy. Real does not mean healthy. Right? What if twin flames are all real, but none of them are healthy? Who would want to believe in a connection that would have no justice at the end of it? Right? So there's so many different levels and layers to this stuff, but nobody's really considering that the signs and synchronicities that they may be seeing probably in part has to do with a lot of the energy that's being focused upon a particular person. Right? Speaking from my life, the first person I ever thought was my twin flame. So many synchronicities, so many signs, confirmations. It was the first experience, right? Before I had ever heard the label, I wouldn't have experienced any of that stuff, right? I didn't see any angel numbers before this awakening process. And yet this woman, just all this stuff, right? And I was like, oh, look at all that. But it never worked out. And whether or not they were my twin flame, it doesn't really matter, because I'm not here to prove that they exist or don't exist. It's obviously not as simple as gravity, right? Drop that, right? There's certain things we can see, certain things we can prove, certain things we can experience, and other things that are just ideas, intellectually, we can't do anything about. But like I said, that's not the point of this video. The point is that there's clearly things that are unhealthy, and that woman never worked out, and it was never going to work out. It was never supposed to. I look back and I think that wasn't my twin flame. If that's what a twin flame is, nothing to do with me, okay? And after that, there's been plenty of, at least 3 or 4 women that I've probably experienced just as many confirmations, just as many synchronicities, and all of them had a very similar theme. And it was, my focus was only on this particular person. And when my focus was on this person, synchronicities, confirmations, whatever, galore, everywhere, all the time. It was amazing, right? And yet the other people in my life, the other women, since we're just kind of talking about romance now, love, the ones that were healthier, that showed, that always met me in the middle, not a lot of confirmation, not a lot of synchronicities. And what was I supposed to think about that? Are we supposed to say, well, that means that they're not meant for you, that there's nothing there? It's focus, right? It's where your focus is. And where your focus is doesn't determine absolute truth. Okay, that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They just assume that because there's synchronicities, it must mean this. But that's not what synchronicities, for all we know, synchronicities that we see, they could be saying, yes, important, yes, real, yes, whatever, but maybe you're not supposed to be with them. Maybe take a step back. We'd like to fill in things with our own ideas, right? You might see the angel number 111 when thinking about a person, and you might take that to mean that you're supposed to be with that person, that there's a new beginning coming up. But in the very same breath, it could also mean that there is a new beginning coming up and it's not with that person, right? And the thing is, how do you prove love? Well, you can't prove love in a way, at least in a way that you might be able to prove other things. But in my experience, love is something where two people are consistently matching each other, right? Over and over and over again, they're matching. It doesn't mean that it's like, this is just an energy, right? It doesn't mean that everything's perfect on the surface, but energetically, there's a matching. And it can happen with friendships, it can happen with family, it can happen with people that you really believe you have some strong soul tie to. There's lots of different ways of that would show up. But ultimately, the way that I've seen actual love and commitment and friendships and relationships show up in my life and other people's lives is through a matching of energy. And all the other fake things that fall away, that are unhealthy, that don't really would kind of match that kind of idea of unconditional love, they never match. They're always fucking messy. They're everywhere. They don't really energetically match up, even if things on the surface might look different. So this whole idea of just blatantly believing every sign and synchronicity that comes your way as proof of something is not healthy. Okay, and again, there's a focus on what's healthy and what's not healthy. This is not a focus on what's real and what's not real, because that's going to be really up to you to decide what that looks like. In my experience, you want to find out what's healthy, what works, right? What works for you, right? And the synchronicities might say something here. 2 years from now, they might say something else. The woman that I met those years ago that I really firmly believed was my twin flame and all those synchronicities, it's not how I feel anymore. Years and years later, they're someone else. Do you know what I mean? And someone else with synchronicities. And if I just keep going in this pattern, then okay, 3 years from now, there'd be someone else. There's always going to be another person. There's always going to be more synchronicities. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't put those blinders on and just assume that the person in front of you must be the person that you're meant to be with. Maybe that's the case, but you shouldn't rely on it. You shouldn't use synchronicities as a objective layer of truth to just wash over a person in your life. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the person in question, because you don't know what they're thinking and how they perceive life. And even if you want them to perceive things the same way as you can't force them to. And maybe they will one day, but you can't force that in the timing that you really would like it to. So all I can say is, for my general advice with the twin flame stuff, honestly, and these synchronicities that so many people just keep bringing up, all the people that they swore, well, look at but then it fell apart. They had the realizations about them. Why did they see the synchronicity? Why? It's confirmation bias. There's obsession. There's the focus. There's the fact that you might be misinterpreting things incorrectly. You might be just assuming that everything is a certain way. You don't know what the universe or a God or anything is really trying to say to you. You don't even know your own inner truth half the time. Right? I mean, how many times have you grown in your life where you look back and think, well, I didn't know what I was doing when I was 21, but now years later, I'm different. So why would you assume that the position that you're in now and the ideas and perspectives that you have, and even the synchronicities that you're experiencing, is a blanket truth to just apply to a single person, to all people, right? I think that there's some truth, obviously, in synchronicities and confirmation. I wouldn't consider myself spiritual if I didn't believe in the fact of it at all, right? But we also just have to keep in mind that there are many perspectives and many layers to things, and we shouldn't blindly jump into things, especially things like the twin flame community, which I'm sorry to say if this offends you people, but there's a lot of like cult-like mentalities and actual cults that are happening within these communities, and it's sickening to see people get kind of their money and livelihood and energy stolen by charlatans, which is a word I don't get to say very often. And we got to say it today, which is a pretty good day. If you get to say the word charlatan, that's a good day.